Thank you so much for the opportunity. Hello, everyone. I'm Danang Azhari. You can call me just Dana. And right now, I would like to share a little bit about our research regarding the transdisciplinary understanding in slow onset climate impact on human mobility and immobility. The case study is from the northern coast Java, Indonesia, which is Demak and Indramayu. So uh, this presentation will be a part of the bigger research regarding the human mobility and also the slow onset climate impact in Southeast Asia. But I will give you a little brief about our understanding currently in the Indonesia context and what is affecting the communities and also the bigger pictures in the government and also bigger pictures in the national level. Next, please. So yeah, as I mentioned previously, this research will be a part of a bigger research which funded by United States of Institute of Peace or USIP and RDIS implementation partner. We will be deliver a new knowledge product regarding the human mobility in this based on climate impact and also how it also affecting the tensions and the conflict around the areas and also the government itself. And the aiming of this research will be focusing, the presentation in particular will be focusing on to draw the line between the slow onset climate impact and human mobility, the sort of the slow onset climate impact implication to the community choices in mobility and in mobility as the adaptation measures in Indramayu and Demak. Next, please. So yeah, the current policy gap in climate change and human immobility and mobility in Southeast Asia is currently as not necessarily explored enough because the main gaps is basically there's no clear definition regarding the assessment on slow onset climate impact in Southeast Asia in particular. And another gaps that currently surfacing in the discourse of climate change and human mobility is there's a clear provision, not a clear provision in admission and stay regular pathways in returning or migrations or even the integration of migrations. So it include the broader policy in Southeast Asia. And another current gap is the national, there is no legal binding regarding the protections of the people who move and also the one who affecting by the slow onset climate change. Next, please. So these are our case study right now in Indonesia, especially in the coast, northern coast Java. The first one is in the map, which prone to sea level rise, land subsidence, and also have been affected by the coastal flooding. Some of the people who live in the area has forced to move to the nearby village, and some of them also need to move because they need the safe space because of the affected sea level rise. And the second case study that we had, we also find a sea level rise prone area in the coastal Indramayu, and they try to find a new livelihoods because some of the area, the environmental area is not really have a good uh, a good carrying capacity to live in, and they also tends to be temporary migration because of the uh, temporary migration and find a better jobs for a while, for a season, and they come back to their village to have an in-situ adaptation by raising their house floor and their house. Next, please. Yeah. So why we need to understand more about the slow onset climate change impact and human mobility, as we need to establish a comprehensive approach to produce policy to adapt to the slow onset climate impact, as you and it's one of the biggest threats that humanity currently have. And we try to understand this approach into three different into three different differentiate aspect. The first one is the macro, meso, and micro, and we try to understand how could they affect the community choices in mobility and immobility. Next, please. In our research, we find out that in the macro level itself, there is an exposure to climate change impact, but the lack of understanding in the multiplier effect of the climate change itself, it the understatement of the multiplier effect in the level. There's also in context.
So wait a minute, could you
So find out that there is a lot of commitment, especially for slow onset climate impact. And the synergy in supporting local resilience capacity remains underdeveloped. And there's also an absence on slow onset climate impact assessment, as I mentioned previously. And in the meso level, we find out that the livelihood and economic that dependent in the natural resources remain the biggest factor on mobility decisions. And we also find out that the social cohesion and preserving their local value is one of the biggest factor why they are choose to stay. And another thing is, since the complexity of human mobility and its context-specific nature, we find out that the cost of moving or staying remains undefined and adequately. And other than financial capital, the social network or social capital between the community is also the crucial role in migration decisions. And in the macro level, we find that also that the community felt that they never had a good connection in the human-centered approach, and they never had been the core of everything. So we also mentioned that the protection of the community in the move is not really determined effectively and not necessarily developed adequately. So there are three. We can move on to the next slide, please. So there are 3 points that I would like to also highlight from our research right now. The first one is the transdisciplinary understanding and data. As we find out that the formulation of climate-sensitive interdisciplinary assessment instrument is quite challenging in the local government, but we need to find out a good balancing into the transdisciplinary and understanding in the data itself, and work in harmony, because we find out that there is some participation within the stakeholders, but there is no meaningful participation within the stakeholders, and we encourage more collaboration and synergy in adaptation measures, including the migrations and also the plan relocations. And the last one is to listen to the community most at risk, because we all know that the community is the one who affected the most by the climate change, and the human-centered and context-specific approach need to be the core of understanding in human mobility issues and its relation to the climate change. So yeah, I think that's basically the wrap up for me, and looking forward for our next session. Thank you so much.